I don't think you can shortcut around hard work. Learn how to use the tools really well that make you more productive. That continuous learning and excitement, I think, is so important, especially, in fast-moving tech companies, because I knew when this person comes in, the impact that they would have. Always hire people that, are better than you.
Welcome to Moonshot, the podcast where we explore what it takes to achieve high performance in business and in life. Today's guest is Adam Beavis, Vice President and Country Manager for Databricks in ANZ. Before Databricks, he was Managing Director at both AWS and Stacks, leading high-growth organisations through some of their most transformative years. At Databricks, one of the fastest scaling tech companies in history, valued at over $100 billion, Adam is helping shape how enterprises adopt data and AI at scale. Outside of work, Adam is no stranger to hard things. He takes on endurance events like Ironman, using those challenges to build resilience and focus, qualities that continue to define his leadership today. In this episode, we uncover the driving forces behind Databricks' $100 billion momentum and what it means for AI adoption in ANZ. How successful companies turn AI pilots into real business value, and the habits, hiring principles, and mindset Adam uses to build elite teams. Adam is one of the highest energy leaders I know. He brings an incredible presence to how he shows up in business, in sport, and in life. Whether navigating the opportunities of data and AI, leading teams, or looking for advice on how to take your performance to the next level, there's something in this episode for you. I'm your host, Tatjana Pandurevic. Let's dive in. Adam, thank you so much for joining the Moonshot podcast.
Excited to be here.
We've been trying to lock this conversation for a while, so I'm glad we've finally got you in here for what will be a great chat.
Congrats on the podcast too. It's great. It's going really well.
Thank you. It's been lots of fun. I'd like to get started from where your career actually began, and then how did that lead to all the leadership roles that you've had?
It's a good question. It started at McDonald's actually, but I won't hang around on that bit too much. But
that was your first job?
First job was McDonald's, but I think my second or third job actually led to tech, strangely, Blockbuster Video. So was at Blockbuster and working in managing the Chapel Street store in Prahran, which was great. And then someone dared for me to go to a job at head office where we used to do a lot of computer work back then for Blockbuster Video. And I went in and I got the job, loved the job, but I knew nothing about computers. And so it was quite funny. So the first day I sat down, and I'd grown up on Apple computers, so I had no idea about DOS and things like that. I sat in front of this, I think X486 computer, I think they were called back then. And one of the managers realised I knew nothing about computers. And he kind of said to me, hey.
How did you get hired?
Yeah. He's like, what are you doing here? But he said to me, I'll commit to teaching you everything you need to know if you help me out and do all the grunt work around the office. And back then you used to clean computers and motherboards and cable things up, all these mundane jobs that people kind of just don't need to do today. So over 12 or 18 months, I worked really close with him. He's still a fantastic friend today. I actually saw him in London recently, and he taught me everything I need to know about computers. And it kind of grew from there, from tech to project management, and then eventually sales. I wasn't a great tech person, I'll be honest. I wasn't a great tech person. I always knew it. Eventually my world would lead into moving into sales, but it was a great grounding, and I love it now because you've got a true respect for engineers and how hard that work actually is. So, but I always knew one day I'd shift to sales.
And how did the shift come to leadership roles?
I think I always loved people. I always loved being part of teams, and I loved helping develop people even when I wasn't in leadership role. And it's funny, I always just knew one day I would lead people or manage people, and it started off very small. First opportunity was at Red Hat to manage a small channel team, and it just grew from there. I just always loved and still to this day do. Probably the highlight of my job is definitely watching other people's careers develop, and it just became from there. And then I think once you start to enjoy doing leadership or being a leader, you learn more about how you improve that and so on and so forth. And then like anything these days, it goes so quickly, and then 20 years later, you're managing quite large teams. But it's been a great journey.
Well, your career has certainly been characterized by a lot of growth. Did you always envision that this is a path that you would take? Because you're no stranger to doing hard things outside of work. I know you've pursued Ironmans. Have you always done hard things, and what have they taught you about your own leadership philosophy?
I think I've always loved challenging things. So like the Ironman or crazy rides and doing things that I've always loved it, like these really silly goals. I'll call them silly goals, but it's funny. I love then training or heading towards them and getting them done and the next one and the next one. And you go through that moment where I'm like, oh my God, I'll never do that again. And the next day, like, man, let's do that again. And I think the things I draw from it, things like never giving up. Like if you're doing any event, God, it's short event, long event, you have these moments you just hate and it's miserable. And so you don't like it. And I think sometimes within the next hour, you can feel fine again and off you go. And I think about that even in work life, like this never give up, stay positive attitude. You can have a bad day and then you can get a phone call and that bad day can turn to a great day, or having a bad week and the next week's great. And I think I bring a lot of that into probably, the leadership style from the endurance events, I would say. That's one big thing I bring in.
Well, you've got both the high performance, but also the positive attitude. You've led high performance teams at the likes of AWS, Stacks, and now Databricks. When you first start to lead a new team or organization, how do you go about instilling that culture within an organization?
I think it starts with people, and Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about this. And I think he covers it off brilliantly. And I always take my leadership teams through this. It's about getting the right people on the bus. But then once you get them on the bus, in the right seat on the bus, and I think that's important. Often you can come into organisation, amazing people, they might not be in the right place, or you've just got amazing people in January and you're like, fantastic, this is great, I can run with that. But that's probably the first thing I always do, a look across the teams and the people, and never try to form opinions too quickly. And sometimes I think in leadership you can do that, and I've certainly done that in the past. And I love it when you're proven wrong. I love it when you go, no, don't like that person, and then 3 months later, oh my God, like what a
Crushing it.
fantastic
Great hire.
stare. Yeah, great hire. I think that's probably the most important one, getting the right people. And then you talk about processes or mechanisms that I think become important. And I like to talk to the team about like non-negotiable things like in our world of sales and areas like that, things like Salesforce and hygiene, the things you don't want to talk about. No one wants to talk about that every week. So how do you then put non-negotiables in with these leaders and then say, okay, we're going to adhere to that standard as a team? And as insisting on the highest standard, I think it's one of the great um, principles or ideas that I've learned. I think that's probably been a huge development area for me over the last 10 years. And then finally, I love common goals. I love, when you can have these visions and you can talk to the team about, oh my God, in 2 years when we're 100 people, in 3 years when we're 200 people, in 5 years, this the organization will be 500 people. And if you're starting your career for the first time, you're going to look back on these days and go, oh my God, remember when we're a 50-person company and I was the first to move into this new office, and this is the first time we won a bank as a customer, or a telco as a customer, or a big digital native as a customer. I think inspiring the team early on around these moments, I think is, so people very much so, really good mechanisms and process without process for process sakes, and then common goals are usually the things to sort of rally a team around early on.
Yeah, and on that last one, it's really kind of the exact same that you would lead a team sport around a shared vision.
Yeah.
The companies you've happened to have been a leader at just happen to be hyper growth organizations as well. Is there anything nuanced or unique about that?
Uh, I do think it is. I think you have different leaders in different times of where businesses are. I love early growth, hyper growth organization. It's certainly my strength because you're building, you're making stuff up as you go, you're creative, you're breaking rules, you're pioneering new areas. So I think that is certainly one, and it gets you a chance to build that hyper growth, high performance team from scratch. I often think one day would it be interesting to take maybe a non-high performing business one day and see if you can turn it around. I do sometimes think, would I love to do that? But at the moment, I do really enjoy the fast moving hyper growth companies. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of work. You don't sleep much, but they're a lot of fun.
But they move at a lot of speed.
They move at a lot of
It's an
speed.
interesting place to be. Well, let's talk about one of those
Yep.
Databricks, which you're currently leader of in Australia and New Zealand. Recently hit $100 billion valuation with your
Yep.
Series K funding
Series K.
round.
Yep.
What's the driver behind the momentum of Databricks?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. The macro factors of data and AI in the market today is definitely one. But I look at the founders of Databricks and the leadership team we still have today at the very, very top. And I think their vision of knowing one day the role data and AI would play in business and the ability to stay true to their principles around developing a product that would democratize data and AI for everyone. It wouldn't only be for the super powerful tech companies. Their vision was to build a product that would democratize that for anyone. We have 10 people, startups that run it all the way to some of the largest companies in the world. And I think that vision, and they've stuck to that, is probably one of the reasons why they're so far ahead in market. They always knew that data and AI would come together, and AI would be a first-class citizen on a data platform. And to their credit, that's come true.
And especially in recent months, in the last couple of years, where every organization has AI as part of their boardroom agenda,
Yeah.
where are the biggest organizations for organizations in Australia and New Zealand to capitalize on that opportunity?
I think there's some easy wins. I think one area people get a little too hung up on is how we can take cost out. Is I think people look at AI and go, "Oh, let's just try and use it to take cost out or take people out in areas like that." We're not seeing that in a massive way. The things that I love to see is they're complementing workers, which is great. The knowledge and the output of a worker now that knows how to use these tools, quite remarkable. And then I think the other thing is, if you look at product development and ideas, leveraging AI to be able to quickly get experiments out the door or develop new products, even from a simple, coding. I look at some of the AI assistants for coding where you're seeing a 30-40% improvement for people. They're the areas, at the moment we're really starting to see gains. Longer term, I love the ideas around, the social areas that you take schooling, teachers being able to just click a button and the exams are corrected so they can teach more, or in healthcare where, doctors and nurses, much less time doing administration work, being able to do healthy work. So I love a lot of the work you can start to see happening in those areas. It'll give a lot of benefits, but it's still new and it's so early on, and the success rate is not huge at the moment, for quite a few different reasons. A lot of experimentation that people are getting these experiments up and going, but all of a sudden then they go to scale them and they can't because the data's not right and the governance isn't right. So we've got a long way to go, but it's an exciting future. It's going to be pretty good what we'll start to see.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned some of the industries that are likely to be impacted in such a positive way, from education to healthcare. And it's remarkable. Like it will really be a step change from where we are today and where we will be from a humanity
Yeah.
standpoint. Going to that point you were just making about organizations still trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to use the technology, how to do that successfully. Lots of organizations are doing POCs,
Yeah.
but less are still at that point where they're seeing value at scale in production.
Correct.
The organizations that are doing this best, from your experience, what are they doing?
I think they're focusing on the right things. One thing that is becoming quite leadership super important. You've got to have a strong leader that is going to stand on the hill and say, this is our direction. And we have an incredible customer, and they talk about, they want data like electricity in the business. And it takes a strong leader to get up and say that and then rally a team around that. So leadership's a big one. The other ones are doing well, enabling the business and not just the tech teams. I think is really important, how you're going to ask different questions of the data. Um, who's going to get trained up on these skills to be able to shift the way they think? Because you could put all this incredible technology in, and they're just going to ask the same questions that they ask Salesforce every day or another platform every day. So to get them thinking differently, but the ones that are doing it well, I think have a really healthy respect for the data and the governance needed. And One thing that I'm saying to talk about businesses a little bit, it's fun to do experiments and move quick there, but you almost need to go slow to go fast. And that means get all your data together and govern them. Because once you're in that position, it doesn't really matter what use case you want to do or the ideas that come up. If your data's governed and it's in high quality, it's high quality data, you can do whatever you need. Whereas I think what a lot of organizations are doing are rushing to get to this point over here with experiments and here we go. And then someone says, can we put that into production and scale? And it's like, well, no, because it's not governed and it would be risky to open it up to our customers or, have that data floating around in large language models.
Yeah, there is that, and then there's also just a little earlier you mentioned software development as an example
Yep.
where there's such a high degree of productivity gains, but already it's getting taken for granted in terms of what organizations can do today because of how quickly the technology is
Yeah.
moving. As organizations, okay, they need to think about having the right data strategy, needs to be governed, accessed in the right way, the right guardrails around it. Once they get to that place, how can they then create unique differentiated value if the technology is becoming so democratized?
That is actually a really good and a super important question because it's what they do with their data. And every organization has access to the same models and technology, and every vendor's coming at them, but it's how you draw intelligence out of your own data. And that's a big differentiator because if you've got the models able to answer questions about your data or predict what you can do or your customers or trends in the market and how that applies to your products and services and can allow you to adjust, your marketing or your people, your hiring or which markets you go into, that's the differentiator, and that's hard. Getting these models to work successfully and accurately on structured data is hard, but that's the difference. And I think that you'll see organizations that know how to harness the power of these models or Gen AI or even, traditional machine learning on their own data to get answers. That's big. That's the differentiator. And we're seeing some organizations really start to do that well.
It's a real paradigm shift of where we're heading. You speak to executive and boards all the time. To give our listeners just a little view in the conversations that you have, if you were talking to the CEO of a major enterprise tomorrow, doesn't matter what industry it's in, whether it's retail, mining and
Yeah.
energy, or banking, what are the key focus areas that you would tell them to focus on in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, definitely do the hard work of getting your data right and governed, but that is hard. Some organizations we work with, that journey's been 2 years for a large enterprise to get that right out of a lot of legacy systems, single governance, and that's hard, but they have to start. But it doesn't mean you wait to be able to get that right before you can get moving again. I think look at putting strong leadership in the right roles. You'll see a lot of organizations now where the head of data and AI will be going into the CEO or at a minimum, into the CIO or the head of tech. Super important to get really strong leadership around it. Build a company-wide enablement plan and include yourself in it, Mr. CEO. Like include yourself in it. It's new for everyone, and everyone can read about everything that's going on LinkedIn or in newspapers and things like that, but don't get lost in that. Think about your business, your team, your people. Everyone wants to do it and learn. So you drive a really wide enablement plan. And then the first use cases you pick, make sure they've got impact. Make sure they're not, oh my God, we just built a chatbot and now I can log tickets to get my laptop fixed. It's got to be much bigger than that. It's got to touch different parts of the business, different types of data, streaming and batch. It's got to have a little bit of AI in there. Like you've got to think through the use cases that when it pops out the other side, that's like, wow, that's really had a big impact on our top line, or it's going to have savings on the bottom line. So just some of those things are really, really important.
Yeah, some great principles to focus on. And one more that I'd like to ask you
Yeah.
about, and probably quite a common question in the field of AI, it's reshaping how people work and will
Yep.
continue to do so. We're just at the beginning of that. Um, a broader question for anyone that's thinking about which skills should they invest their time and resources to build and learn,
Yep.
what would those be? What guidance would you give them?
It's so funny that because it is moving so quickly. I mean, there's technology out there now that I saw demoed on our platform now, where it's like almost like data science as a service, where in natural language you can build a model and deploy a model. And I mean, I'm not a technical person, but the thought of someone like me doing that in the wild is incredible. Whereas, 2 years ago, God, and I'm not saying data science is dead, but 2 years ago, that was the number one sought after job. But we've made it easier for people to be able to build these models now. I think the skill currently at the moment, and my wife's in marketing, and I watch the way she uses AI, and I think the most important that people can do now is learn how to use the tools really well that make you more productive. Learn how to feed the right words and language into a model that will give you great results. Learn how to ask the right questions of it. We do it a lot internally at the moment. I've only got one ops person for a huge team here in ANZ because it's all self-service now. We just use natural language. So getting used to asking the right questions and when and how, I think early on for everyone, that's super important. And then for the developers, learn how to use the productivity tools and the assistants to improve, because if not, you will get left behind, because the next generation of people coming through where this was just a natural part of their life, I see them in the office, and some of the people that we work with now, it's incredible what they can build and develop in a short period of time.
On the tools piece, you remind me of a story I heard just a couple of months ago, and I'll have to find exactly who said it to reference it in the link to the episode. But they were saying when you're using your phone, 80% of the time you're using 20% of your applications, and with tools it can get quite overwhelming because, like technology and the way that data and AI are moving, there is new tools popping up and new innovations that it can get confusing of which ones to use and where to get started. What are some of the most common tools that you're using on a daily basis?
I love Perplexity, so we use Perplexity a lot at work, and I've started to just enjoy working. Well, at home, I was using ChatGPT quite a bit, and I have shifted now from Googling things to Perplexity or ChatGPT. I'm actually not sure what that is.
The young
Yeah,
people say using chat. I don't.
using
Yeah.
ChatGPT, so they're much younger than me, but and so they're the basic ones that I use. But even now, when I need to research things or do things, simple things that could be, just understanding how to do things better at home or finances and things like that. Oh, just to be able to go to the next level, the next level, the next level, I find it quite remarkable. So they're probably the big ones that I do use, but I'm sure there's others out there that everyone's using, not me.
All right, now I want to ask about just your daily productivity
Yeah.
hacks. You've been in hypergrowth companies for quite some
Yeah.
time, and with Databricks, it's no different, one of the fastest scaling tech companies of all time. What are some daily habits that you have that allow you to perform at such a high level of energy sustainably over the long term?
Um, Good support around me for one. Yeah, I think that helps. I've been very lucky to have a great supporting family around me. Even, before I was married or that, I've always had a great supporting family that's always helped. And now with the wife and the kids, like they're very patient. I do travel a lot, but that helps a lot. But I think that the simple ones are like running. Like I love to run, used to love to ride and swim as well, but running, I really enjoy. And learning, I still carve out time to learn. When I even moved from AWS or Stacks to Databricks, I wasn't from a strong data background. And so I was an imposter for a long time. And so I studied and studied. And we were talking about a little bit earlier, being able to go onto YouTube and go deep and deep and deep on layers around data and all these words I'd never heard of, because I didn't realize how complicated it was. So learning continuously, I think, is super important. So staying healthy and running and doing things like that. Always being curious. I talk about looking over the horizon. I think it's always fun to. In fact, I caught up with I'll call him a friend, but a work colleague today, and he is in an advertising agency, and we just tripped out for half an hour on the future of marketing and what his agency is going to become. And from 0 to 30 minutes, our brains just took off into another world. And now we're going to follow that up with whiteboard sessions and learning and trace this idea to the ground to see if it's possible. So I know I'm going a little off track here, but that continuous learning and excitement, I think, is so important, especially, in fast moving tech companies, because you always want to be creating new ideas and then exporting them into Asia Pacific or globally. And that keeps me going as well. I love it when we come up with a new idea and the next thing I'll call it moving into production within the go-to-market areas, in different companies. So
And for me, that's one of the most exciting things about the recent developments that we've seen within this
yeah,
field, how quickly you can learn, just whether it's a new tool, new
yeah,
idea, translate a new concept, but then also go build it and deploy
yes,
it. It's
it's
incredible. And
incredible.
I feel like we're just going to keep getting faster.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. We were on holiday during July, I think it was, and one of the families who were there, one of the dads built an app in a week while I was sitting there. Had an idea, built a startup, deployed the app, done, and he's never developed in his life. And I saw that and went, wow, just
Yeah.
to that point you're making, it's incredible how quickly people can build and create this stuff now.
And how many more people now that have that
Yeah,
capability and potential that, unless they were a developer or working within a team that's very well resourced or have the money to be able to invest, that wasn't possible
uh,
just 6 to 12 months
at
ago.
all, at all.
Yeah.
So that's going to drive a whole different world of creativity and excitement,
Yeah,
which is
agree.
good. So people look at the doom part of it. I don't see it. I don't see it. I do see it as becoming an exciting sort of next shift. Like everything when cloud arrived, when the PC arrived, when the mid-range computer arrived, the mainframe, like it's definitely this next generation, but it is moving quicker than I think I've ever seen it before.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to ask you about another part
Yeah,
of leadership, which is hiring. And most leaders emphasize just the importance of getting the right people into their
yeah,
organizations. I think it's one of the very first things you started with
yeah,
around the people. How do you hire? What do you look for in the right candidates?
yeah, yeah. I do. If it's a role that comes into me, I spend a lot of time finding it, and I think over the years you're lucky enough you work with great people, so you always in your mind can see the person, the role, and the shape. And sometimes it's just time. You'll wait 12 months, and you'll know that when the right role comes up, and then you'll bring that person in. Once actually, I waited 18 months to hire a person because I met the right person and waited, and I had to carry that team, coming directly into me for 18 months, but I was willing to wait because I knew when this person comes in, the impact that they would have. And I think as a leader, that's important. You're always hiring, you're always in your head have got, your org chart 2 years into the future in most cases, knowing what to do. It doesn't always work out. In fact, some roles are really hard to hire for, but I think it's important. And then I interview almost in quite a conversational style. Like you always have set questions you need to get through, and that's quite important. But often in certain roles, it will be their background, and did they, coach football teams? Did they coach their son's sport? Did they captain a particular team, a netball team, a softball team, an AFL team, and things like that? So there's different traits that you can see in leaders. I think very, very on. Again, not always the case, but there's some patterns that over my time hiring people that you can see and feel. And then the other thing that I think is important, you can all do references. References are fine. You ring up. I don't think anyone's ever said, "Oh, yeah, actually, worst person that's ever worked
Shouldn't
for."
hire this guy.
They should
Yeah.
fire this guy. I think understanding through the ecosystem as well. It's very easy to get feedback on people and the type of person that they are as well, because they might be great at their role, but they don't suit the culture. Or they could suit the culture, but they're not ready to move into that high performance one. And I think the other one I love is taking risks on people. I love it when they come off. Just like what I said earlier, like sometimes you say that they'll never make it, and then they're really successful. And I love going up to my team going, "Phew, I'm glad I was wrong on that one and you were right." The other way around is when you back someone and your leadership goes, "I don't think they're the one," but you go out on a limb and they end up being successful and go on and have a successful career as well. So, but it is something as a leader you have to put so much effort into. People that wait for the recruitment team to get people in and then you interview 5 people and put them through. I don't think that works. I say to people before they even get to recruitment, you should pretty much know that they're the one.
I heard Stephen Bartlett talk about this as well because exactly to that point, he overemphasizes the impact on hiring
Yeah.
and why leaders have to be involved in the process. The way that he positioned it was, if if the people are the most important part of your organization or one of the most important, you want to really do your due diligence in getting those people in, because as soon as you start getting B players, they'll hire C players. If you get C players, they'll hire D players. And then the entire culture becomes much, much more difficult to fix down.
That's one of the greatest sayings. A's hire A's, B's hire
Yeah.
C's, and there is nothing truer when it comes to leadership. It is frightening how true that comment is. And the other one is always hire people that, are better than you. I think it's such a great thing. When you hire someone and they come in and in their first few months, they're, oh my God, this person is phenomenal. That is a great feeling. And that means you've done your job, because like, this person actually can do this role better than me.
And you're
Yeah.
truly then uplifting the entire organizational capability.
Correct.
So high performance, you've been quite a high performer in business and life. What mindset drives you?
Enthusiasm and positivity. It's a really good question. I don't know. I just love, I love being at work. I love being around work, and I love, being around great people and customers. And I think that drives me a lot. You can say family and everything, that's kind of a given, but I just think creating workplaces that people want to be in and be part of. And it almost goes back to the same I said earlier, where, I love looking back, even in my VMware days and my Amazon days. Like, these are the greatest days of your life. And then Stacks, even though it was a short period of time, when I bump into some of it, we still laugh going, how great were those days. And then, again, AWS, just those moments and those points in time that you created, history together. It's a great saying at Amazon, make history. Those moments are super important. And now, doing it again at Databricks, it's just great. I think that's what drives me. I think I just love being in great workplaces.
Do you have any productivity hacks that you've got that you potentially take through your day to day?
Probably interviewing. It's not productivity hack, but if you interview people and it's not going well, just
Save yourself some time. Yeah.
don't go on for the entire hour. Things like that. No, but mine is, one-on-ones is quite an interesting one, because people say you should have one-on-ones every week with your team, but if your team don't want to have
It
them,
depends who it is. Jensen
Depends
Huang
who
at
it
the
is.
video, he has 1 to 30.
1 to 30.
He writes his
I look at
copy.
my leader. We don't have a set one-on-one. We talk when we need to, and we just have a contract around what we want to do in our minds. Deliver, do this, and if you need help, call. And I think productivity hacks around having one-on-ones for the sake of it's one. I've got certain members of my team, I think I have a one-on-one for once a week for an hour, because we love it. Like, it's a great time. I really enjoy that one-on-one, and it goes both ways. Where others, it might be every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or none at all. And I think some people overcram their diaries with one-on-one. So that's probably a productivity hack. I say always make sure that person actually wants the one-on-one before you assume you put it
There's
in.
value in you're not meeting for the
Correct.
sake of meeting.
Correct.
I know I've mentioned Stephen Bartlett, but I bring him up again because
Yeah.
I saw a recent post he did around meetings, and he measured all the meetings that he had in his life, and he broke them down categorically to see, could this have been a Slack message? Could this have been a phone call? And then quantified how much time he would have saved. It was something about 70% of time, and he called it a life tax.
Yeah.
And just that concept of, are you meeting? Like, is there value in this meeting for it to be a session that you've got to have?
I agree. I think COVID created this crazy idea that every time someone needs something, they'll set up a 30-minute call. Whereas I still love the phone. I love getting on the phone and just walking around. Even my one-on-ones, I often do walking around on the phone. I think you think better. You're not distracted. I think the distraction of sitting in front of a screen sometimes and having a meeting for the sake of it, I totally agree with him. I think that is something people should think about more.
Okay, Adam, this show is called Moonshot. What is a bold moonshot type goal that you're working toward?
Oh God, it's hard because I've had so many. I'm actually trying to de-moonshot a little bit at the moment. I do love doing big extreme events and running and things like that. So I'm actually trying to do a little one where I'm actually just want to get super fit over a short period of 1 hour training. So whereas-
What is a little one for you?
I just did a marathon, which was great, but
Yeah.
much shorter. I'm like, there's a guy I know, Ian Gardner, and he's incredible. He used to do startups for us at AWS, and I've seen what he's doing now. He's just super fit. Instead of endurance, he's just super fit. So maybe 1 hour hit outs a few times a week instead of long, sort of arduous runs. So that is mine. 1, 2, because it's a goal to then spend more time with the family rather than long events on weekends. So it's crazy, but that's probably my moonshot. I've had too many moonshots.
You're de-moonshotting to focus on the ones that are the most important.
It's a reverse moonshot. So, yeah, which is good. So I'm sorry I haven't got any big crazy ones at the moment.
You're the first person who's been de-moonshotting, so I'll take that. I'll take that. Last question. For anyone that's looking to aim higher in their own life
Yeah.
and achieve their next big goal, what advice would you give them?
The one that, and I say this all the time, I think there's so many things that make people even these days. There's tools, there's AI, you can shortcut around anything. I don't think you can shortcut around hard work. And I look across the teams, and again, we've got a high performance team, but I can already tell you probably the 5 people maybe out of, depending on the short age, but in more junior roles, that are probably going to go on and be great leaders, or if not leaders, but there could be an IC that very successful just because of the hard work and learning they put in. I just think that is the one thing you can't get away with. You can work smarter and do things, but working hard, if you're just getting into sales, make 10 more phone calls than everybody else, do 10 more meetings, drive all the way to the customer's office, even though it's so easy to do it on a VC. All those little, one of my managers calls them 1%ers, all the difference. Do your follow-up within 24 hours, all those things early on and probably throughout your career that are really important. And I put it down to sort of hard work and just going that extra mile.
Amazing advice. It's one of the only things you won't be able to short circuit
can't.
into the future that
You
we're heading into.
absolutely can't. And I think you can see, as I said, early on in people's sort of career, that attitude.
Adam, thank you so much. It's
No
been
worries.
such a pleasure
Great
having you
to
on the
do it.
show.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll get you on for round 2 if we can lock some time in.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yes,
No,
you
thank you
can-
so much.
You can let me know if
Congrats
you've
again.
de-moonshot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Moonshot. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the show and leave a review. It helps me bring on more amazing guests like Adam and continue to share bold, thought-provoking ideas. See you next time on the Moonshot Podcast.